She walked into court smiling, not nervous, not shaken, smiling, like someone attending a routine meeting, like someone who already believed this would end the way the first hearing did, with freedom. Her fiancé sat behind her. Family members nodded reassuringly. She adjusted her posture, calm, composed, confident. But courtrooms are quiet before they change. And when the prosecutor said, "Your Honor, the state would like to play a portion of the recovered messages," the air shifted. Because confidence is easy until the evidence starts talking. And once it did, the smile didn't look the same anymore. I'm bringing you this case on criminal women, where I examine the complex psychology behind female perpetrators. If cases like this interest you, subscribe now, because I publish 2 new cases every week. When Nicole Callaham walked into that Greenville courtroom in July 2025, she didn't look like someone about to lose everything. She wore a soft expression, almost cheerful. She glanced at her fiancé. She nodded at family members. If you didn't know why she was there, you might think she was supporting someone else. But this hearing wasn't small. It wasn't routine. It would decide whether she walked out free again or whether the walls were finally closing in. Nicole was 33 years old. A kindergarten teacher in Anderson County, South Carolina, a theater director working with teenagers at a local playhouse, a woman with degrees, church involvement, awards, and a reputation parents trusted. And that word, trust, would become the center of everything. The allegations began with one name, Grant Strickland. By 2025, Grant was 18. But when the relationship investigators would later examine started, he was just 14 years old. A shy teenage boy auditioning for a summer musical at Project Challenge Playhouse in 2021. Nicole was directing that production. At first, nothing looked strange. She was encouraging, supportive. She offered extra coaching. She volunteered to help with rides. His parents were busy with other children, so her involvement felt helpful. That's how grooming often begins. Not loudly, not obviously, quietly. School records would later show that Nicole signed Grant out multiple times, even though he wasn't her classroom student. Theater schedules matched those dates. She was creating access, consistent, repeated access. Investigators say that over time, messages began increasing. Thousands of them, inside jokes, pet names, conversations that blurred lines between teacher and teen. By the time detectives seized her phones, they recovered more than 12,000 text messages. 12,000. Think about that number for a second. That's not random. That's not accidental. That's sustained communication over years. According to arrest warrants filed in Anderson and Greenville counties, Nicole allegedly provided Grant with alcohol, marijuana, and nicotine while he was underage. Prosecutors later argued that this wasn't generosity, it was manipulation, making him feel older, making him feel chosen, making him feel dependent. The alleged physical encounters began when Grant was 14 and continued until he turned 16, which is the age of consent in South Carolina. Some meetings reportedly took place in hotels and parking garages in Greenville County, and authorities would later allege that she followed him to Greenville after he enrolled at the Governor's School for the Arts and Humanities. Even after Grant's mother confronted Nicole in 2023 and demanded no further contact, communication didn't fully stop. Investigators say Nicole purchased an Xbox specifically to maintain online contact with him through gaming and messaging platforms. To the outside world, she remained a respected teacher. She had taught at Homeland Park Primary School since 2017. She held a bachelor's degree from Anderson University and a master's degree from the University of South Carolina. She was active in church. Parents admired her dedication, especially to low-income and special needs students. That public image mattered. And because when Grant finally came forward in May 2025, 2 years after the physical relationship allegedly ended, many people were shocked. On May 21st, 2025, Nicole quietly resigned from her teaching position. The next day, investigators intensified their review. On July 10th, 2025, she turned herself in. She was initially charged in Anderson County with 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct with a minor and 1 count of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. At her first bond hearing, her defense emphasized that she had no prior criminal record, that she was 9 weeks pregnant, that she had a young daughter at home, that she cooperated fully with police. The judge set bond at $40,000 with conditions. She walked out, but it didn't end there. Just days later, the Greenville authorities added 12 more charges, 7 counts of criminal sexual conduct with a minor under 16, and 5 counts of unlawfully placing a child at risk of harm. Suddenly, the case doubled in weight, and that's when the second bond hearing happened, the one where she walked in smiling. Prosecutors laid out a detailed timeline: 2 years of alleged conduct, digital records, location data, school sign-out sheets, theater booking confirmations, thousands of messages recovered from 2 separate phones, one used for school contacts, the other for playhouse communications. They argued this was calculated, systematic, not a misunderstanding. And then the prosecutor began walking through the timeline slowly, date by date, message by message, hotel receipts, school records, phone extractions. The courtroom grew quieter with every detail. What once sounded like allegations now sounded organized, structured, deliberate. Nicole's expression, once relaxed, grew tighter as the list continued. Because it wasn't just one mistake being described, it was a pattern, repeated over and over across 2 years. Grant's mother submitted a written statement read aloud in court. She described feeling sick, realizing how deeply her family had trusted Nicole. She spoke about her son's anxiety, depression, and weight loss after everything came to light. Outside the courthouse, Grant spoke publicly. He said something that hit hard. Just because he is male does not mean what happened should be minimized. He said he wasn't a man when this began. He was a boy. That moment changed how many people saw the case. The judge ultimately granted bond again in Greenville, but with strict conditions. A $10,000 surety bond for each charge. In total, her bonds across both counties reached $160,000. She was placed under house arrest, ordered to wear a GPS monitor, undergo psychological evaluation, and have 0 contact with the victim. 3 days after Grant's televised statement, the nonprofit Safe Harbor reported a 38% increase in calls from teen boys in the region. His decision to speak created a ripple effect. Parents across Anderson and Greenville began asking uncomfortable questions. How close is too close? How much access is too much access? Schools reviewed supervision policies. Theater programs re-examined background procedures. For many families, the hardest part wasn't just the charges, it was realizing how easily trust can be misplaced. Grant's story forced conversations that had long been avoided, especially about male victims. Many admitted they never imagined a teenage boy could be manipulated this way. But trauma does not depend on gender, and silence only protects the wrong person. On August 13, 2025, the South Carolina Board of Education suspended Nicole Callahan's teaching license. Additional investigations, including one by Clemson City Police, remained ongoing. As of the latest court reporting, she awaits trial on 15 charges across 2 counties. Under South Carolina law, each count of second-degree criminal sexual conduct with a minor carries significant potential prison time if convicted. And this is where the story becomes heavier. Because in court, Nicole maintained composure. Her attorneys argued there was no flight risk, that she had family support, so that she had already stopped contact. But digital evidence doesn't disappear because someone cooperates. 12,000 messages don't rewrite themselves. Sign-out logs don't change dates, and courtrooms don't run on smiles. Because when someone stands accused of crossing a line with a child, the courtroom isn't just deciding guilt. It's weighing power, authority, influence. A teacher isn't just another adult. They are someone parents hand their children to every single day. That responsibility is enormous. And when that trust is questioned, it shakes more than one family. It shakes an entire community. In that room, it wasn't just about charges and bond amounts anymore. This case forces uncomfortable questions. How does someone with degrees, church ties, and glowing reviews build a private life that looks completely different? How does grooming hide inside mentorship? How many red flags look like kindness when you want to believe someone is good? There are no dramatic car chases in this story, no masked strangers, just quiet access, repeated opportunity, and the slow shift of boundaries until they disappear. The trial has not yet concluded. Nicole Callaham is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in court. But the evidence presented so far, according to arrest warrants and bond hearing testimony, paints a detailed picture investigators believe shows a pattern. And that moment in court, when she smiled, believing she might walk out like before, now feels different in hindsight. Because once evidence is entered into record, it doesn't fade. It stays. And when it plays, everyone in the room hears it. Cases like this stay with you. Not because they're loud, but because they're quiet and complicated. Let me know what you think about this one. If you found this breakdown helpful, give it a like, share it with someone who follows true crime, and stick around for the next case. If you'd like, I can now tighten pacing for retention, add more emotional pauses, or make it even darker while staying factual.